Thanks, Louis. I've had the fun job of bringing customer data to life with analytics and reporting for over 20 years with IBM Cognos Analytics with Watson, the sister product of IBM Planning Analytics with Watson. Just like tea and biscuits, they are better together, complementing each other's strengths and extending their value throughout your organization. The familiar look and feel between the two capabilities provides an easy transition from one to the other, as we see here in the Cognos Analytics portal. As Louis introduced earlier, Cognos Analytics has a wealth of capabilities, including exploration, dashboards, stories, but the focus of this demonstration is on report authoring. In this demonstration, I will show you Cognos Analytics reporting over the Planning Analytics R6 Sustainability Goal 13 cube, but you can also report over other OLAP or dimensional data sources, such as PowerPlay cubes and Microsoft Analysis Services cubes, as well as a wide range of other data sources, such as relational databases, Amazon Athena, IBM Big SQL, IBM DB2. There's Planning Analytics, for example. Lots of options for you to meet your reporting and analytics needs. While report formats for sustainability reports are yet to be finalized, pixel-perfect professional report authoring with IBM Cognos Analytics with Watson gives you the power and flexibility to meet all your reporting needs, from the simple to the complex. Let's look at our Goal 13 Sustainability Report, which runs in HTML format. This first page of our Goal 13 Sustainability Report shows the 17 goals from the United Nations Goals section of their webpage, and each tile could be used as a table of contents to navigate to the appropriate pages of the report. Report authoring in IBM Cognos Analytics with Watson allows you to build everything from invoices, multi-page briefing books, detailed store or supplier performance reports, or burst reports, where, for example, each entity, department, branch, customer, or supplier gets a report with their own data. We'll have a look at burst reports in just a few minutes. With easy access to the Learn pane, you can get guidance on how to create reports. For example, if you wanted to create a prompted report, you can set up sophisticated prompt pages, cascading prompts, add prompts to the page. There are lots of options for creating the kinds of reports that you need. The ability to run reports live or to schedule them allows you to operationalize your insights, scenarios, plans, and budgets with pixel-perfect reports available throughout the business. You can also navigate between reports with drill through. I could quite happily spend all day showing you the delights of report authoring. Let's now have a look at the next page of our Goal 13 Climate Action Report. The main section provides details on CO2 emissions by entity, year, and quarter, with the crosstab showing the entities down here on the left, with the last 3 years across the top. We're looking at the actual and target CO2 emissions, the variance, and the actual percent of target CO2 emissions for the last 3 years. The color coding of red, amber, and green, which can be shown with colors as well as indicator shapes, draws your attention to where you're performing well, with green showing that we're under target, the amber where the variance is between 0 and -5, and the red where the variance is more than -5. It's good to see that we've made significant progress from 2019, which is amber and red, to all green in 2020, but Entity 2 has slipped back into the red in 2021. Looking at this at the group level, which is the total of the 3 entities, as shown in the summary line in the crosstab, the overall achievement for the group for each year is shown in the bullet charts on the right. The 2020 chart clearly shows our success in staying well below target, and even with Entity 2 back in the red for 2021, the overall impact still leaves us below target for the group. You can then see the CO2 emissions further broken down by quarter for each of the 3 years in the line chart, with the colours of the lines representing the entities. All 3 entities follow a very similar pattern across the 3 years, with a dip in emissions in 2020 and a rise in 2021, but still staying below the levels of 2019. The HTML report viewer itself has built-in interactivity. For example, if you select an item in the crosstab, such as Entity 1, the on-demand toolbar appears in the top left, with additional capabilities for exploring the data within the HTML viewer based on the object you've selected. Because you are in the crosstab, you can filter and choose to include or exclude this particular entity. And if you select Entity 1 and Entity 2, you can also amend the sort, for example, or add another summary row to the crosstab. And if you select the actual and the target, for example, you can also add new calculations with fast menu options right at your fingertips. And because this is dimensional data from IBM Planning Analytics with Watson, the Explore option lets you drill up and drill down, expand and collapse members, and choose what you want to do with dimension members. For example, look at the top or bottom 3, 5 or 10, or to create something custom. For example, one based on the top or bottom percent rather than the count. You can even swap the rows and columns. This gives business users the ability to make changes on the fly to gain additional insight, all without changing the underlying report or having to go back to the report author to ask them to create another version of the report. Similarly, the chart also has an on-demand toolbar. In this case, it gives me options for filtering, where you can independently focus on items in the chart. For example, pick specific entities to look at a particular year, even a particular quarter. Let's just undo those. And you can also set up extra data to filter on items that are not directly represented in the chart. For example, here you can focus on asset type and compare one or more of fleet vehicles, office buildings, processing plants, and so on. And when I'm done, I can simply clear the filter and close the pane. The next page of this report focuses on group emissions by asset type, with a line showing the group actual CO2 emissions by asset type, year and quarter for 2019 to 2021. And not surprisingly, our processing plants shown in the yellow line have higher actual emissions than the others, but they are lower in the last 2 years than in 2019. The pie chart on the right shows the group actual CO2 emissions for the most recent complete year, 2021, with the total emissions in the middle of 526.22 and the amount contributed by each asset type. Further down the page, we have a similar crosstab to the one on the previous page, but now we see a crosstab for each entity and the actual, target and variance for each of the asset types. We see a similar trend in that we made significant progress from 2019, which is all amber, to all green in 2020, but certainly for Entity 1, office buildings have slipped back into the red, with processing plants the only asset type for Entity 1 to stay in the green and below target, and the other two showing amber. Now, as well as running the report in HTML, you can run the report and produce output in various other formats such as PDF, Excel, Excel data, CSV, and XML. Let's go back to our content and look at our report options. As well as being able to run the reports interactively, you can schedule them to run. Looking at the properties of our Goal 13 sustainability report, in my report options, I can choose to specify the number of occurrences of run history and how many report output versions you want to keep. And you can schedule the report to run, for example, daily, weekly, time-based or by trigger. Specify the options for output, for example, HTML, PDF, Excel, and how you want to deliver it. For example, save the report to the portal, send it by email, send it to a mobile device, and the summary pane on the right keeps track of what you've selected. Finally, as well as running reports interactively, you can send tailored outputs with report bursting. As I said earlier, this is where a report runs once and generates a separate output for each entity, department, branch, customer, supplier, and so on. Let's have a look at the 2021 Goal 3 Sustainability Entity Report. This report is similar to the report we've been looking at, showing the entity and additionally the entity email address. As well as the asset type, this report also focuses on the last full year, 2021, and contains all the emission KPIs of actual, target, variance, CO2e reduction, CO2e compensation, and the reduction to emissions percentage. The actual emissions by quarter for 2021 for the entity and asset type are shown in the bar chart on the right. Entity 1 has more CO2 emissions from office buildings, shown here in the green, whereas Entity 2 has more CO2 emissions coming from the processing plants, as shown here in the yellow bar, and fleet vehicles in the blue. Finally, Entity 3 also has CO2 emissions mainly coming from processing plants. We want each entity to get its own information, so let's simply run the report and burst it. Of course, we can also create a schedule for this, as I showed earlier. Let's run the report, and we want outputs in HTML and Excel. Let's simply switch on report bursting, and again you can specify how you want it delivered. In this case, we want our entities to get the report from the Cognos Analytics portal, so we'll simply save the report and run it. No other BI vendor does report authoring or bursting as well as we do out of the box, and the message tells me that it has been completed. We can now view the versions. Here is the report that Entity 1 is going to be getting in HTML. You can see that it's the information purely for Entity 1. And here is the Excel report that Entity 2 will be getting. Let's go back to our starting page. So this brings us to the end of this short IBM Cognos Analytics with Watson reporting demo. And I trust that I've shown you how using Cognos Analytics and Planning Analytics together is just like tea and biscuits, better together. Louis, back to you.